Welcome to Zoom and Vroom. Today we are exploring the Florida Stories app and taking a walk in the history that surrounds us. We were just discussing how much we love having visitors here at the Polk County History Center. However, there might be times where it's difficult to get here, like, I don't know, during a global pandemic. For that, we are very grateful for mobile experiences such as Florida Stories, where we can share Polk County's history with you in your home. In preparation for today's Zoom and Vroom, please have your packet of materials, your cell phone, and a sense of adventure. And we'll go live in 3, 2, I love that mask. 1. Hello everyone, and welcome to Zoom and Vroom, live from the PGTV studio. My name is Jamie Jameson, and I am the Curator of Education and Visitor Engagement at the Polk County History Center. More importantly, on the second Saturday of each month, I transform into your Polk County History and Heritage Fairy Godmother. A little housekeeping before we begin. We expect the program to last approximately 45 to 50 minutes. Can't stay with us that long? That's okay. You can catch us on repeat through PGTV's YouTube page or on Facebook at Polk County Government. Did you know that you can take an expertly guided, multi-sensory tour of over 35 sites across the state of Florida for free? Yes, that's F-R-E-E free. Launched in 2015, Florida Stories transports you through the past and the present, step by step, or staying in one place. Florida Stories tours are high quality, packed with photos and rich audio that will open your eyes to many of Florida's cities and towns in a way you've never experienced before. There are currently 2 tours that are available for Polk County, Bartow, and Lake Wales. Florida Stories is brought to us by Florida Humanities, the state extension of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Let's check in with Director of Florida Humanities, Steve Siebert, and visit Florida to learn a little bit more about this app.
There's a new tour taking over Florida, one that will put a skip in your step and give your phone a proper workout. It's called Florida Stories, a cultural walking tour of the Sunshine State, and it's an app.
So when someone downloads the app, these communities will show up and they can download any one or all of them, and it's totally free, by the way.
It's a tour that allows you to explore the history of unique Florida towns at your own pace and on your own schedule.
The fun part about this is that you can take a walking tour or a guide on a bicycle, and you can actually go and listen to information about what you're looking at. Or you can just be in your car or be in your home and get a tutorial on a wonderful Florida community. For example, I'm at stop number 1 here in downtown St. Petersburg, and you could download the app and walk right into this historical museum, which is a wonderful place, and you can get your first flavor of the city of St. Petersburg if you were so interested.
Each tour is about an hour long with at least 10 stops. Each stop serves up about 3 to 6 minutes of history to enjoy while you take in the site.
It's about history, sometimes it's about architecture or culture or music, and all of that is part of the app.
Local voices are often the storytellers, and historical photos complement the recording.
It is absolutely like getting a tour from a local.
For example, in St. Augustine, you can choose to learn about the city's Spanish history,
275-year-old Rodriguez Sanchez house,
or check out the architecture on the Gilded Age tour.
Creature of Henry Flagler's love.
Lincolnville is one of a number of tours about our state's African American history, where your steps actually follow the path of civil rights marchers in 1965.
Churches where King spoke in late May.
And so we have communities that are very proud to tell their history.
While you learn about the cultural and historical fabric of the area, you'll undoubtedly stumble upon more great things to experience, like shops and cafes and museums.
It is a wonderful, free way to discover information about this magnificent state.
You could take it in stride and do a little over a few days, or plan an afternoon around the map, like a friend and I did in DeLand. tour the beautiful Stetson University campus, visit the Opera House, and enjoy a locally owned lunch spot.
Well, there's a side benefit of all of this, which is that you get outside. It's pretty spectacular, and we're in a state where you can be outside virtually all year long.
So pick a place and put on your walking shoes. You've got a whole state to discover. For Visit Florida, I'm Janice Jones.
To discover more about the Florida Stories Tour and Florida Humanities, we've invited Keith Simmons, Communications Director for Florida Humanities, to join us today. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, it's always good to have a representative from Florida Humanities partnering with us on programs and sharing some of that statewide history that makes Florida truly more unique than just the, hashtag Florida Man. We're Florida Stories as well.
Absolutely. And, Florida Man is always an interesting concept, and being in the headlines for the news for something nefarious or anything like that. But really, a lot of people that come and live in Florida, I think you get an opportunity to experience really one of the most diverse states in our country. And everything that happens in Florida is honestly setting a trend for the rest of the country. So it's always exciting to live in a state where you're on the cutting edge.
Yes, definitely. And here in Polk County, as we continue to just grow and grow and grow, it feels like we're ever more on the cutting edge between, I think Auburndale has a autonomous car track that they're testing things out on now, and warehousing and distribution centers. But in the midst of all that, there's this great and wonderful history for Polk County that is really representative of the history across the state. So I'm so excited to talk to you about Florida Stories today. But first, can you give our audience a quick primer on what Florida Humanities is and kind of what your guys' mission and what you do across the state?
Absolutely. You kind of mentioned a little bit of what Florida Humanities is about. We are the state affiliate for the National Endowment for the Humanities. Florida Humanities was created in 1973, and our mission is to promote the humanities and all of its disciplines, think history, literature, philosophy, civics, in the state of Florida. And so we do that with a range of public programs and being able to partner with organizations around the state, libraries, museums, historical societies, and also great institutions like the Polk County History Center. That's really the way that we're able to kind of amplify some of these messages and have opportunities to share what are some of the most incredible stories that I think you'll ever come across.
Yeah, I know when I started here, we were involved in a couple of grant processes with the Florida Humanities, and one of the things that I found really interesting as I started working with you guys, and you might be able to speak onto this, but if not, it's okay, but the poetry program and supporting, is it a statewide or a national poetry day competition? And it seemed like there were a lot of young people that participated.
Absolutely. And so that's a great example of the type of work that we do. So Poetry Out Loud is a national program that's coordinated by the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Poetry Foundation. So there's a necessity to have someone at the state level help to coordinate a statewide competition. And so for a number of years, that's what one of the things that Florida Humanities did. So we provided teaching kits to high school teachers around the state. So they can have a poetry unit in their English classes, and then they would have school-wide competitions. Once those school-wide competitions were done, we would have all of the school champions come to, for a number of years, it was at the University of South Florida in Tampa, and then for the previous 2 years, it was at the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg for a statewide competition. And really, it's a day-long celebration of poetry, spoken word, and the importance of having really powerful communication. It's kind of it's amazing to see the number of young people that are able to get up on stage. It's never easy to do public speaking. Yeah. And yet they're able to get up there and they're able to recite these poems, not just from memory, but it feels like from the heart. And with their ability to do that, being able to connect with audiences and share this really compelling message. Once they've done that and we have our state champion, that individual goes on to the national competition where they compete with those from all over the country to find out who the national Young Poet Laureate is going to be. So it's a really exciting and compelling program.
I love it, and I have a feeling, I have a sneaking suspicion that this year you're probably going to see double or triple interest in that poetry program, thanks to the wonderful poem presented by Amanda Gorman on that national level. It was like poetry was having a moment right then. So I think I'm looking forward to see what people who are much more eloquent than I can come up with. Now, Florida Stories is another project similar to what you guys do with the poetry program, and I'm so curious. Technology is a very difficult world for people to break into, especially for nonprofits. Typically it has a lot of costs associated with it, and so it can seem really scary. So give us a little background on how you guys decided to start the Florida Stories project and really how you figured out how to do it.
Well, again, that's another great question, and it's a really exciting project that we've worked on for a number of years. There are two things I think we kind of believe about history and our state stories. And that number one, they should be accessible to all. I mean, that's really at the core of our mission, is that we want to make these stories as accessible to as many people as possible, whether we're talking about school groups, families, individuals, and so on. The other thing that's really important, though, is wanting to have history be a little bit more hands-on. Sometimes it's difficult if you're just looking at text and sort of old documents and that sort of thing. So we wanted to find a way to make history sort of come alive. For a number of years, we did teacher workshops, and we worked with K-12 teachers to enhance their content knowledge on Florida history.
I remember
And we
those.
realized that after years of doing this, we wanted to bring that history and that knowledge to a larger public. And so we started to look at ways where we could do that. And we sort of settled on this concept of walking tours. And so we sort of put together that first concept in 2015 and working in St. Augustine, doing a tour of the ancient city. And then from there, we've been able to really kind of expand into a broader network of tours across the state. And so what's great about it is that it's very expansive. It's very accessible, whether you're looking at it from a phone or a tablet or some other smart device. And there's just so many potential stories that you can tap into. I mean, it is very easy, I think, to honestly go beyond just talking about Florida Man. When you hear the stories of honestly everyday Floridians and everything that they did in terms of making this state home and making it a special place, it's just phenomenal in terms of all the history that you're able to potentially dive into.
Yeah, and I would say too, the level of relatability, that once you know the history, you start connecting to the place. And I have an uncle that I'm very fond of in California who likes to jab me when he visits, because all I do is tell him about Polk County's history, and he says that you have so much excitement for it. And I said, it's really interesting once you start to dive into it and find out who these people were and what they did and what they were up against settling Florida. So it's been a phenomenal, and I'm so grateful to our leadership for connecting early with the grant process to have Florida Stories in both Lake Wales and Bartow. You would think we're in the same county, it's got to be two completely divergent, different stories for the history there. So it's been fantastic. Speaking of Lake Wales and Bartow, how many cities do you guys currently have, and are there any on the horizon?
So that's another great thing to sort of point out now with Florida Stories, is that we've typically done it in partnership with museums, libraries, historical societies. There's someone who's that local content expert, and we want to bring that person into a larger statewide network. And the fortunate thing is that over the number of years, we've been able to create tours in 30 cities, and we have a total of 36 tours around the state. So we're stretching from Pensacola all the way to the west, going over to Fernandina Beach in the northeast, and then all the way down to the Florida Keys. And when we're talking about how we have 36 tours, in some cases we have multiple tours, for example, with St. Augustine, knowing as much history that's present in that city. We have 5 tours that are located there. So we have one that goes to sort of Spanish colonial Florida. And then we also have some that talk about Henry Flagler's St. Augustine. So that's sort of the Gilded Age. And then we have some that talk about St. Augustine's civil rights history. So we're really kind of spanning a huge amount of time with all of these tours, and we're able to cover huge portions of the state, which is something else we're incredibly proud of.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. Which are your favorite tours, and why are they Bartow and Lake Wales?
Well, to be honest, I mean, Bartow and Lake Wales are some of my favorite tours. I'm from Central Florida, so perhaps it makes me a little bit biased. I think Central Florida is one of the most dynamic and best parts of the state. Including that, there's also a tour in Tarpon Springs, which I've really come to love over the years, again, just because there's such an incredible culture and history that's there. You can't go wrong with anything really in St. Augustine. We also have a really fantastic Fort Pierce tour that talks a little bit about Zora Neale Hurston. And so she's arguably one of America's most critical and essential writers. And so it's great to be able to share that knowledge with a whole host of Floridians.
Yeah, we've had some significant interest in Zora Neale Hurston recently, and talking about her experiences with the WPA and the Writers Project in the Laufman area of Polk County, which is just near Davenport, and the turpentine workers in the rail yards. Significant, you talk about the WPA as a program, it's an economic program, but the amount of culture that was left behind by it is just staggering and significant. So if you're out on the tour, Keith Simmons, what are some of the tips and tricks, things that you do to maximize the experience while you're walking around the city?
Well, I think there's a couple things that are worth keeping in mind. And one of them is that sometimes these tours have a lot of information in them. So the files might be just a little bit on the large side.
Guilty.
Which is why it's often important to be able to download them over Wi-Fi if you can. Oftentimes and this kind of goes into a second point, when you're interested in taking a tour, we have several stops like the Polk County History Center where you can get a rack card to sort of show information about the tour. You also have an ability to have someone help you potentially download it. So we always encourage people to reach out to someone at one of those museums, or in some cases it's a library, to give you that kind of assistance and information. And they might also be able to point out some of their favorite stops on the tour. Another thing, and I think it's also really important to keep in mind, is that especially as we're approaching the later half of the year, remember that it's a walking tour. And being in Florida, it's really important wearing comfortable clothing, closed-toed shoes, that sort of thing. That's also going to help to make sure that you have as much comfort as possible. On average, these tours might be a mile to maybe a mile and a half. So if you are taking the entire tour, certainly be prepared for that in terms of all the clothing and things that you bring with you.
Now, are there different ways to access the tour? So if I'm, visiting someone who's, recovering from an illness or something of that nature, is there a way to access it without having to actually go out and walk around?
Well, you can certainly just download the app. It's available for Android and Apple devices. And so we've had a number of people that have essentially done armchair tours. And so it's an opportunity to just learn about another part of the state from the comfort of your own home. We also have a web app, which I think is a phenomenal use in the classroom. If you want to get a tour, especially as I've mentioned before, like St. Augustine and some of these other parts of our state, and you want to be able to bring that history into your classroom, that's another great option that's available to you. All of the tours are recorded by professional voice actors. And so it's this really compelling and engaging narrative that's often accompanied with a lot of photos that are going to show you from a historical and a contemporary perspective something special about that particular tour.
Yeah, fantastic. I know when sometimes I'll take groups out on the tour, and I'll bring my Bluetooth wireless speaker, and we can listen to it as a group while we're out standing in front of the actual sites. It's really been a great way to kind of enhance that experience. And for my moms and dads out there, that Bluetooth works through your car as well. So if you're just, you don't have the ability to take the kids out of the car that day, you're driving through, you can play it right through the car and do a driving drive-by site tour. So that's been a really phenomenal use as well. So Now, I know things are a little different right now because of the impact of the pandemic and so on and so forth, but are you guys accepting applications for cities? I'm looking at you, Auburndale, to participate in this program.
Right now, we don't really have an application process that's open, but we can certainly look to doing that in the future. And anyone that's interested in learning more about Florida Stories, whether you are wanting to download and take a tour, or if you are an organization that wants to simply learn more about the program itself, certainly visiting our website, floridahumanities.org/Florida Stories. That's where we have a lot of more information about the program. You can see the particulars about the tours and just more information about our organization.
And a little extra plug here, you know, Florida Humanities is so much more than Florida Stories. You guys have an entire tremendous grant program. And so for any of our historical associations or affinity groups that are tuning in, just a quick primer on kind of the grant program might be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So the main thing that we do is we have what we call our community project grants program. And this provides up to $5,000 for a nonprofit to be able to support a humanities project. And these can run the gamut from doing community conversation programs, creating an exhibition, even doing tours and that sort of thing. Because oftentimes with tours, you're going to have to do research. And so there's going to be some costs that are involved with that. So what we have with our community grant project process is that you're able to apply. There are multiple deadlines throughout the year. And so we have an outstanding team led by our grants director, Lindsay Morrison. She loves having opportunities to talk with people about their prospective projects. So if you want to learn more about our grant program, you can go to floridahumanities.org/grants. That's where we have all of the deadlines and some of the requirements for that program. And again, that's where you can also find Lindsay's contact information. She would love to be able to set up an opportunity to talk with anyone about their potential interest in a grant.
Yeah, it's so phenomenal. And what I love about it too is sometimes, you know, in the nonprofit world, you can get hesitant to go into these grants because, oh, I'm not big. I'm not a big organization. But that's what the Florida Humanities grants are for. They're not for, you know, the big Orlando museum. They're for the little museums in Oviedo and Sanford that are trying to target their specific community. And it is just a phenomenal asset. So thank you guys for all that you do to facilitate that. Speaking of programs, is there anything coming up at the Florida Humanities that you are excited about, something new? You know, I know you guys stay busy and have a lot going on, but what's new and exciting?
There's quite a lot. I mean, there's a few things, though, that certainly come in mind, you know, just sort of off the top of my head. One of which is that some people may not know, but we publish a magazine. Forum Magazine is something that we've done for a number of years. It's a great resource in terms of getting more of these really rich stories about our state's history. We publish it 3 times a year. We're actually in the final production process for our spring issue, which is going to mail later this month. So you can go to floridahumanities.org/forum to see more about the magazine. You can browse the archive of issues. And you can also sign up for a complimentary 1-year subscription to the magazine. So it's a great opportunity to be able to check it out there. Something else that we've been working on is we started in 2020 in the wake of what happened with George Floyd and other incidences around the country. We started a series in talking about issues on Black history and race. So we did that first part of the series in 2020. We actually wrapped up part 2 of that series, and part 2 focused on Black women in Florida. And so we have those recordings available on our website as well as YouTube. And so anyone can check out our website or our YouTube channel to find those. And we're always planning more remote programs, particularly in our current moment. Remote programs are still really essential. So we always encourage people to go to floridahumanities.org/events. That's a place where you can see all of the programs that either we're doing or we're doing in partnership with some of our great friends around the state, and to be able to sign up and join us for some awesome humanities programs.
Wow, it's a lot of great stuff. And Forum Magazine has been a tremendous addition. I was receiving it at my previous place of employment, and now I get to read it here, and it always seems to be right on the pulse of what is most discussed and interesting in the humanities at the moment. Whether it's, I think there was one issue, it was baseball, and of course here in Lakeland, we're all getting really geared up for baseball. We're excited to see the Tigers come back into town for spring training, or if it was voting, at the end of last year when we were going through this monumental election process at the same time as a pandemic. So it's a really well-written and also I would say visually beautiful publication. So if you haven't checked it out yet, definitely I encourage everyone to go check it out. When you get the walking tour for this month, or the driving tour, pardon me, you will see that we have included Lake Wales and Bartow, but also for our Polk County population, we're suggesting that you visit Ybor City, Tarpon Springs, Indian Rocks Beach, St. Petersburg, and Old Manatee, all really easy driving distances from Polk County, and we'll explore them a little bit more. But before I let Keith off the hook, one of my first meetings with Florida Humanities and the team talking about this Florida Stories project was in St. Pete, and we went out to eat afterwards, and I was, I'm a naive little Orlando kind of girl, and this heated debate erupts about the Cuban sandwich that I did not know was out there in the universe. So, have the team members at Florida Humanities made an overarching decision on which is the more delicious Cuban, Tampa or Miami?
I don't think that we have, because it is such a contentious topic, to be honest. But one of the things that has been absolutely phenomenal is that one scholar that we work with quite a bit is Dr. Gary Mormino. And he would probably be able to answer this question. I think he might also hesitate in terms of naming which place. I'm sure he would have a favorite or two or three, honestly, in terms of the Cuban sandwich. But just because, as I said, I'm a Central Florida kind of guy, I've got to go with Tampa. You know, I think that Miami sandwiches are also phenomenal. The Cuban sandwich should honestly be in consideration for being the nation's sandwich. But in terms of really want to answer the question and not trying to give a political answer, I'm just going to have to go out and say Tampa.
All right, I love it. And Dr. Mormino, it looks like we're going to be coming after you soon, because I've launched this one-woman campaign from Polk County to find out the truth. Now, in the same grain of unique humor, I do have to know, has Tom Brady been by the offices yet to inquire about the Florida Stories? And if not, how do we get a hold of him? I mean, he's Tampa Brady now.
He is, and unfortunately, because of COVID, we haven't had a chance to have him come into our office. But I mean, what better way to be introduced to his new state than with a lot of content about the humanities? There are walking tours that he could take all over the state. There's a magazine that he could read. There's programs that he could attend. So I think that it definitely should be one of his top priorities this offseason. To learn a little bit more about his new adopted state. And it's just also great just to see, by the way, just all the sports and the number of championships that Florida has been involved with. I mean, it's just showing really the kind of power that this state has. And, it's okay that we might be the envy of the rest of the country. I think it's something that our state can handle because that's just in our DNA. That's who we are.
Yep, I love it. And I think I'm going to get a custom jersey made for him that says Florida Stories on the back instead of Brady.
If you get one of those, please send it to me. I would love to have something like that.
I definitely will. Well, thank you so much, Keith, for joining us today. I've really appreciated this. I hope you see some new downloads on the app coming through, and we'll look forward to partnering with you again in the future.
Absolutely. And thank you again, Jamie. And please send our best regards to all of the staff at the Polk County History Center. I mean, the work that you all are doing, just like all the other partners we have, is absolutely crucial right now. And so we hope that you all continue to stay safe, that you continue to keep making those awesome programs. And we're going to find some opportunity for us to kind of come back together again in person. I know it's bound to happen sometime soon.
I'm looking forward to it. Keith, have a great rest of the weekend.
Thank you, you too.
All right, you can learn more about or experience the humanities in Florida by visiting www.floridahumanities.org or by catching them on social media at Florida Humanities. Curious about how a tour might work in the real world? Let's hop on my phone and you can follow along as I download and open the app. To download the Florida Stories app, you will want to either visit the Apple App Store or Google Play Store on your mobile device. In the search bar, type Florida Stories and hit search. The app should be the first to show, and you will recognize it by the teal icon with the white shoe prints. It will also have Florida Humanities Council as the developer or creator. Select the app and download. Once downloaded, open the app. If you are prompted, we advise allowing the app to use Bluetooth while the app is open and suggest you set other notifications to your preferred settings. You can get started by taking a tour of the app in the How to Use This App section, or just jump right in and select Tours. Once in the Tours window, simply select which city you'd like to walk to download the content. Once the content is downloaded, you will not need to utilize data or Wi-Fi while out on the walking tour. To select a site, either choose one from the drop menu or click a pin on the map. A map pin can also give you directions to a site from where you currently are. Select Home to return to the main menu where you can register your group as having participated or share with friends and family on social media. Enjoy! Now currently the cities of Lake Wales and Bartow are the only tours offered in Polk County, but that doesn't mean the fun has to stop there. I want to encourage you to explore additional tours within the region for a fun day trip. These sites include Ybor City, Tarpon Springs, Indian Rocks Beach, St. Petersburg, and Old Manatee. An easy 45-minute drive from Polk County, historic Ybor City offers a taste of Latin heritage and a culture quite unlike any other. If you don't believe me, check this out.
The world's greatest sandwich looks like this. It came from here. Some say like this, because it tastes like this. A sandwich so good, poems have been written about it.
A sandwich so superbly styled, it made the God of heaven smile.
But this sandwich of roast pork, fine ham, Genoa salami, Swiss cheese, mustard and pickles on toasted Cuban bread is mired in controversy. The Cuban sandwich is not from Cuba, it's from Miami, and it's not from Miami, it's from Tampa, but it is called the Cuban sandwich.
It became a Cuban sandwich because it was made in Ybor City, made by Cubans.
That's because Tampa was home to thousands of Cuban immigrants in the early 1900s. At that time, Tampa's Ybor City was the cigar capital of the world, attracting immigrants from Cuba, Italy, Spain, and Germany, creating a mixture of cultures unique to Tampa.
What you're looking at is a Cuban sandwich. The Spanish with the ham, Cubans with the mojo roasted pork, the Italians with the salami, cheese, mustard, and pickles from the Jews, on top of that loaf of Cuban bread. And so the Cuban sandwich represents those different cultures.
The Cuban sandwich, if people really knew what it was about, could help bring peace and joy and humanity.
The Cuban sandwich is more than a sandwich. It's a symbol of what can happen when people come together. Sandwich of unity. In 2012, the Cuban sandwich was made the official sandwich of Tampa. While variations of the Cuban sandwich exist elsewhere, the original can be traced back to the immigrant neighborhoods of Ybor City.
It's a Tampa invention. Tampa has a lot of food inventions, and the Cuban sandwich is ours.
The Chicago-style hot dog, New York pizzas, but for Tampa, that Cuban sandwich.
Now I'm definitely hungry. Those are the most delicious sandwiches. Don't forget that your driving tour includes suggestions on local places to grab a bite to eat, and I would definitely check out the Columbia. Your driving card will also tell you a little bit about being able to hop on the Tico Line streetcar, which is a fantastic way to explore not only Ybor, but to head over to Channelside and the waterfront area of Tampa. Now, speaking of water, we leave Ybor City and we travel to the northwest to explore Tarpon Springs. The first Greek to step foot in America is believed to be, and my Spanish and Greek is not very good, but I'm going to try, Don Teodoro Griego, or Theodore the Greek, who landed in Florida with the Narvaez conquistadors in 1528. There's actually a bronze statue in Clearwater Beach in his honor. Now, fast forward nearly 400 years to 1928, and a wave of immigrants from Greece came to the United States, topping out at 420,000 people. While many of them chose to settle in the cold, frigid industrial zones of the Northeast, the more sensible among them found a home right here in Florida. Greek immigrants built Tarpon Springs' signature sponge industry, turning a remote village into what was called the sponge capital of the world. Even for a time, sponges retrieved from the Gulf of Mexico outstripped citrus products as Florida's main export. Let's check out some of that process with our friends in Tarpon Springs.
All aboard! My grandfather started this back in 1924. We had a lot of sponging going on and sponge boats, but nothing that really explained to the people what we did or how we did it. And so my grandfather came up with this boat ride, and we've been doing it ever since. A sponge is an animal, not a plant. You'll never find these growing on a sandy or muddy bottom. You know, a lot of people think this is a flower pot. That's what they use it for. I used to take these things and make reindeer antlers for my kids at Christmas time. That suit weighs 18 pounds. The breastplate on his shoulders weighs 22 pounds. The shoes he's wearing, they weigh 24 pounds. That's 12 pounds each. Before we put that helmet on, we'll throw a couple of lead weights over his shoulders that weigh an additional 70 pounds. Then we have his helmet, which weighs 38 pounds, making that a total of 172 pounds, not including his own body weight. You to touch and feel, squeeze it. Don't be afraid. Nothing but water will come off in your hands. It'll feel kind of like a wet piece of rubber. Thanks for coming, everybody. Next tour starts in 10 minutes, and we are getting ready to shove off. If you'd like to go with us, come on down.
Now, I would like to point out that several of the videos that you're going to watch today were filmed prior to the pandemic. So, don't worry. I'm sure everybody is still taking pandemic precautions, probably not putting that helmet on everybody's head right now. But that helmet and the entire suit is a significant amount of weight. I don't think I could jump into the water with all of that on. You can check it out in person, though, with a visit to Tarpon Springs. The Florida Stories tour, when you download the app, takes you through the sponge docks, the boat lines, and the spiritual sites that define the community. And I definitely wouldn't miss an opportunity to visit some of the manatees that can be seen at Spring Bayou. Moving south, we land in an area that I had been once before but was not aware of the history, and that is Indian Rocks Beach. It was settled in 1883, and pioneers called it the most beautiful spot on God's green footstool, Florida footstool. That's a direct quote from history. Today, Indian Rocks Beach is an acclaimed destination for excursionists and fishermen. One of the most fascinating parts of this walking tour are the number of beachside cottages that are highlighted. They are like mini little time capsules carrying us back to the days spent on the beach, enjoying the sun and the breeze. And like much things in history, they're going through a preservation process. Let's visit with our plain art friends in Indian Rocks Beach.
Welcome to Florida. On behalf of the captain and the crew, the temperature is a beautiful 80 degrees.
The fabulous west coast of Florida, an enchanting corner of America where thousands come and return again to bathe in year-round sunshine.
Pinellas County is historically a place where people return because they want to keep reliving their pleasant memories, their time off, you know, their time away from the grind, and this is what they pleasantly remember. The sun shining on them. It's a very easygoing lifestyle here.
Indian Rocks was known as the playground of Tampa's rich. And because we had that bridge that was built here 100 years ago, people would come by train or take all day to come by car, and they would come to Indian Rocks before they would go to any other beaches.
And back in the 60s and 70s, there were over 550 small properties in Pinellas County, 550 small mom and pop motel type properties.
When I look at today's world in Indian Rocks and all of our beaches compared to what it was 20 years ago, we really have lost a lot of these beautiful little cottages.
This is a story about saving some of those historic hidden treasures. Save Our Cottages, artists with a cause.
Growing up in old Florida, I remember all the woods and all the beaches that only had little small cottages in front of the beaches. So as you rode down the street, you always saw the water, you always saw the ocean, and it was so beautiful.
I enjoy having that history, although more and more of it seems to be disappearing.
I remember summers coming over here when I was going through graduate school and staying in these gorgeous beach cottages.
And so we would drive up Gulf Boulevard in the 60s and 70s, and what you saw there were a lot of the mom and pop hotels, and you also saw a lot of beach cottages out there. It was what I call BC, before condominiums.
Before spring break was all the rage, before Florida became a Disney destination, for many Floridians, the beaches along the West Coast were simple summertime getaways.
As Indian Rocks Beach began to develop in the 30s and 40s and up through the 50s, people from the north, very often, if they could afford it, built little cottages in the south for them to come to during the winter months.
Some of the oldest cottages are built right here in Indian Rocks Beach, and a lot of them.
These homes have a story all their own. I always say if these walls could talk, you know, I love to know the history of the home.
Here, Sarah's Seaside, there's 8 cottages here. Some were built, 1910 is the oldest, 1920s, 1940s, so they're all a little bit different, and each week we build a community.
The best part is when the sun starts setting and then it cools off.
I'm from Minneapolis, from Plymouth, Minnesota, and we're here because we just scouted around for some place to stay and really like these small cottages.
In the 80s, the condos were newer and shinier, difficult for us to compete with.
While some condos have very nice views and nice amenities, some of them look very cookie cutter.
The condo kind of became a place you could be almost anywhere, didn't feel special.
Whereas a cottage, even if you have cottages that are a similar architectural style, they often have enough unique features that they define themselves as great living places and unique entities.
Well, like in all beach communities, they're tearing them down. People are tearing down historic old cottages and building condos.
People buy the properties and they'll either replace a cottage with a bigger house or a condo will come in.
If you're a cottage and you have a 10-story condo on either side of you, you really don't get direct sunlight any longer, so you're kind of overshadowed by the big giants on either side.
The condos are the Great Wall of Florida.
I think she's referring to the Condo Canyon. And when you drive down Gulf Boulevard, all you see are buildings coming up almost towards the edge of the street right now.
When you tear down the last small cottage and replace it with the final condo you can fit on the land, you've lost something at the end of the day.
Armed with paintbrushes and pallets, meet the least likely warriors in the battle to save the beach cottages.
My name is Mary Rose Holmes, and I'm a plein air cottage artist. I live in Indian Rocks Beach. I started painting very young and getting painting lessons.
My name is Helen Tilston, and I'm an artist.
I started when I was about 4 years of age. I grew up in Ireland and we had a farm right by the ocean. About 10 miles was our property.
My name is Violetta Chandler. I was born not too far from the Black Sea, which was at that time was Soviet Union, and I'm 5th generation fine artist.
When I moved to Indian Rocks Beach 20 years ago, I met Violetta and Helen. We started painting those cottages. We were all painting out together, giving each other advice, critiques, and that's when I started thinking about it.
What started as merely a passion for painting transformed into a cause, the artist's style and strokes becoming the voice for the threatened beach cottages.
Plein air painting is painting outside. Going outside and painting means that you see the light. You see so many things that you don't see in a photograph.
The sights, the sounds, the smells, the atmosphere, the color.
You're connecting to the nature. You're part of it.
They're great for the community because of the way they're visible in such a stylish way and sort of a mysterious way when people see them on the side of Gulf Boulevard with their easels and their flowing clothes, and people are like, who is that and what are they doing?
They're just really gentle people that want to preserve what these cottages are.
Violetta and Helen are painting, and this man stopped as he drove by, and Violetta was painting a really big painting. He could see it from the road. He said, where is that? I want to go there. And Violetta said, you're here, look. And he was so cute. He said, you've taken the fog off my eyes.
Those cottages that we first started painting, they were supposed to be demolished.
They were trying to get the community aware that we were losing so many of our cottages.
The city of Indian Rocks Beach was given variances for each cottage that was demolished.
Those are the ones that we painted the most from every angle, every perspective, from every possible size of a canvas.
We went to 3 cottages here that were getting ready to be torn down. So we were painting like mad. The developers were coming.
Painted verticals, painted horizontal, painted triptychs, we painted singles. We've done all, and those are still there, and they're still gorgeous.
And that's really how they became well known, as the Save Our Cottage artists.
Once you smash a cottage, you can't get another one.
That's what amazes me, that we really opened eyes.
The cottage artists have taken an approach that led the way for awareness and preservation.
They absolutely did. They absolutely were the parents of the cause.
I don't know, that's what some people say, and I think we helped stop it. And we raised the awareness.
We didn't purposely set out to do this, but it is always nice to point out what's being done to an environment, if one can.
Beach cottages are so important because there's just a few left of them.
Our uniqueness is the fact that we retain the older aspects of our city and the historic aspects instead of just wiping them out and constantly, be putting something new in their place.
I feel like that our paintings help to show this town and the tourists the beauty of the town.
Plein air cottage artists keep on painting.
We'll be grateful to them forever.
I enjoy seeing them painting, so keep on painting at the side of the road, yes.
Keep painting, keep the preservation alive in our community. Thank you for your great work.
Their cause continues. Learn more about preservation and the artists by going to the documentary website, saveourcottagesdoc.org.
Very special thanks to the team at Creative on Main Street in Tampa for producing that video and allowing us to share it with all of you. I know that suddenly, for my next Florida staycation, I have this desire to rent out a cottage on Indian Rocks Beach. Now, from the beach, we round out our visit to Florida's West Coast with stops at St. Petersburg and Old Manatee, both of which have similarities to Polk County. Do you know what a Cress building is? Well, never fret. That's what we're here for. S.H. Cress & Company was a chain of 5 and dime retail department stores in the United States of America. Originally established by Samuel Henry Kress, they operated from 1896 to 1981. In the first half of the 20th century, there were Kress stores with ornamented architecture on Main Street in hundreds of cities and towns. The company's exclusion of Black Americans from its lunch counters made Kress a site for civil rights protests during the 1960 lunch counter sit-ins, along with Woolworths, Rexall, and other national chains. The Kress chain was originally known for the architecture of the buildings. Samuel H. Kress envisioned his stores as works of public art that would contribute to the cityscape. Several former Kress stores are now recognized as architectural landmarks on the National Register of Historic Places. The St. Petersburg store, built in 1927, was designed by architect E.J.T. Hoffman and added to the National Register in 2001. The Kress store in Lakeland, does anybody know? It's currently the Explorations 5 Children's Museum. This store was built in 1928 and was designed by George Mackay. Mackay also designed the Kress store in Tampa, also on the National Register, that is just adjacent to the historic Tampa Theater. Designing buildings, that's going to be our story of the month. We're going to check in with Iggy Peck, architect, to learn a little bit more about the imagination and creativity of architects. The Kress stores were known for their unique and grand architecture. Have you ever considered being an architect? And yes, I'm talking to both the kids and the adults in the room. Architects dream up wonderful visions for what buildings and communities can look like. And sometimes that inspiration can come from some pretty interesting places, just like it does with Iggy Peck, Architect, by Andrea Beatty. Let's see what Iggy Peck gets into. Look, there's a cat. First thing, you know it's going to be a good book. Young Iggy Peck is an architect and has been since he was 2. When he built a great tower in only an hour with nothing but diapers and glue. Good gracious Ignatius, his mother exclaimed, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. But her smile faded fast as a light wind blew past, and she realized those diapers weren't clean. Ignatius, my son, what on earth have you done? That's disgusting and nasty. It stinks. But Iggy was gone. He was out on the lawn, using dirt clods to build a great sphinx. When Iggy was 3, his parents could see. His unusual passion would stay. He built churches and chapels from peaches and apples, and temples from modeling clay. If you want to see what else Iggy gets into, you can visit the Polk County Library Cooperative and check out Iggy Peck, Architect by Andrea Beatty. So from St. Petersburg, we make our way to Old Manatee. And before you visit Old Manatee, please make sure to call and make a reservation. They are accepting reservations and appointments only right now as part of their pandemic protocols. So just make sure that you check them out online first before you go and experience the Village Museum and wonder at what life was like in 1912. But did you know you can have a similar experience right here in Polk County with a visit to Homeland Heritage Park? You don't have to drive all the way out to Old Manatee unless you want to start checking off multiple places. Let's check out what you will see if you head out to our Homeland Heritage Park.
The Homeland Schoolhouse was originally built in 1878, about a mile from where the Homeland Heritage Park stands today. It was known as Bethel School, named after the original community that settled in what is now Homeland. This original building was very small and built with cypress wood. In 1879, the school was relocated to where it stands today. The current building features high ceilings and large windows to allow for cooler temperatures and natural light. The inside of the building also features a stage near the main entrance. To accommodate for its growing student population, there were 4 room additions from 1888 to 1922, giving the building its L shape. It remains the only building in the park that sits on its original foundation. The Homeland Schoolhouse was formed to educate the children of Homeland settlers. The building housed 6 students when it first opened, taught by the school's first teacher, Colonel John Snoddy. The school grew rapidly, and within 4 months it taught 60 students. Within 10 years, the school had grown to 75 students. Classes at the schoolhouse ranged from 1st to 8th grade. A typical school year in the late 1800s began in November and ran until the end of March, to allow for children to help their families during farming season. To attend school, families would pay a 50-cent fee for the year. A typical school day would begin promptly at 7 a.m. and was in session until 4 p.m. each day. Subjects like reading, writing, spelling, geography, and arithmetic were taught in those hours. Instilling manners and discipline into students was also an important part of the curriculum. These subjects were important to the development of the community as they created good citizens who could read, keep journals, and could use math to assist with farming. Along with the church, the schoolhouse served as the heart of the Homeland community. Large gatherings and prayer meetings were often held inside the building. On one occasion, as detailed in an 1898 newspaper article, the school hosted a crowd for a Christmas address. Homeland residents and visitors throughout the Bartow area gathered to celebrate the holiday and hear the Reverend's speech. Among them were respected Homeland and Bartow families, which included Mr. B.F. Holland and his young son Spessard Holland, who would go on to become governor of Florida during the Second World War. After the Reverend addressed the crowd with his Christmas wishes, the crowd watched a flag drill performed inside the schoolhouse by older students, followed by a large barbecued dinner. The school remained active until 1956, after which the building served as a school board maintenance facility for refinishing school furniture until it was abandoned in 1982. It remained empty until Sally Meller, a reporter for the Polk County Democrat, spotted it on a school board surplus list and alerted the community of its historical value in 1984. Thanks to the efforts of Homeland residents and surrounding communities, as well as the help of local historical organizations such as the Polk County Historical Commission, the Polk County Historical Association, and E.D. Bud Dixon, clerk of the Circuit Court, the school was marked for preservation. In 1985, the deed to the Homeland School building and surrounding school grounds was signed to the Polk County Board of County Commissioners by the School Board of Polk County for the property to be used for historical purposes. With financial assistance from the Polk County Historical Commission, legislative funds, and the Florida Department of Education, the site and facility were set to be restored and redeveloped. Cal Adams, a Bartow restoration contractor, was assigned with restoring the schoolhouse and was assisted with labor from the Polk Correctional Institution. In 2007, the Homeland Schoolhouse was listed on the National Register of Historic Places, recognizing the site as a historic place worthy of preservation. It remains the oldest existing public school building in Polk County. Today, the schoolhouse building is available to visit for historic tours and is open to the public during special events at Homeland Heritage Park.
We're so fortunate to have that really great resource here in the county for exploring. And if you've not been out to Homeland Heritage Park, come pop by the History Center and we'll tell you everything you need to know to get out there and enjoy it. Now, with that being said, I think you're ready to zoom out of here and start exploring. Let's take a minute to review how to access the Florida Stories tours on your phone. You can either come by the History Center and pick up a rack card from us, or email us and we'll send you a PDF copy, or simply use Google and look for Florida Stories Walking Tours, and it'll direct you to the Florida Humanities site. To download the app though, using the rack card, you simply open up your camera, Scan this QR code and follow all of the prompts to download the app. You'll also notice on the rack card that we've added some suggested food stops. These include the Columbia, Crazy Fish Bar and Grill in Lake Wales, Unfiltered in Bartow, and all sorts of other great places to stop and eat that are family friendly. When you stop by the History Center next time, let us know that you're there for Zoom and Vroom, and we will have a packet for you that includes a little wooden car, a pinwheel, gotta have a pinwheel if you're going to the beach, and some neon glasses. We hope you enjoy discovering Florida stories in Polk and across the Bay. Don't forget to join us on April 10th when we explore northern sections of Polk County, including Davenport, Dundee, Loughman, Lake Hamilton, and Haines City. Until then, happy trails, and thanks for hanging with us through technology.